Oh. Thank you, and spontaneous. I didn't even. My name is Bob Whitmer, Chairman Emeritus of the Board of Trustees, and on behalf of Danny Wegman, our current chair, I want to welcome all of you here for this very special event and evening, one that we hold periodically here. I also want to recognize many of my fellow trustees who are here, and I do hope that you'll take the opportunity to thank them first for their service to the university and to ask them any questions that you may have of them. This is, as we all know, a great university, one of the fine research universities in the country, and we all can rightfully take a great deal of pride in that. We have traditionally used this as an opportunity to talk to our closest friends in Rochester. Like many of you, I grew up here. I was very fortunate to have spent my professional career here and have seen the growth of the university and the increasing importance of the university to our community. This annual garden party is an opportunity for the president to give a report to the community. And tonight we're going to have a little different format. We're going to have a conversation between President Rich Feldman and Emerson Fullwood, and there will be an opportunity for questions from the audience. Those of you who are in the parlor and ballroom, there are cards at your table. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to write them out. Staff will bring them here to the auditorium, and we can then respond. Emerson is a university trustee, former corporate vice president at Xerox, and we are delighted to have him participate in this program with President Feldman, who has been with the university for 43 years. He's a noted scholar, was chair of the philosophy department for, I think, 16 years, was then dean of the college for 11 years, and in those capacities has contributed significantly to the growth and reputation of the university. So I am delighted to welcome to the stage, to the podium here, Emerson Fullwood and our President, Rich Feldman.
Well, Bob, thanks so much for that very warm and welcome introduction. We are delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk with President Feldman here at the garden party. President Feldman, I think this is our 51st annual garden party, and what a great day.
Yes, beautiful.
This is a terrific day, and all of our friends are here, and of course, we're here to thank so many friends and supporters of the university. The university means so much to this community, to Western New York, and quite frankly, to the country. So it's a real delight to be here and to have an opportunity to talk with you and for you to share some reflections as president of the university. Let me begin by saying it's been quite a year. And I suspect we'll talk about that. But I think increasingly it's becoming very clear to the community that the university's response has been very, very strong, and that the institution is making progress. It's ever better, and we really have a very, very bright future as we look ahead. You know, as we kind of take some measurements, we just recently had our graduation commencement just a few weeks ago, and of course, we produce outstanding leaders for not only this community, but for the world. I had an opportunity to talk to Tom Thayer, our Advancement and Development Officer, and our friends and supporters are given in record numbers today, much more so than ever before. So, we're making good progress there. And of course, as we look at enrollment for our freshman class, I think I've been told that we have the most competitive freshman class coming in the fall that we've ever had. So lots of wonderful achievements and accomplishments, and I'm sure you'll talk about some of these things. But it'd be interesting to hear your reflections of the past year as well. So why don't you share a few things with us?
Sure, Emerson. I'm happy to. And I'm happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you. So it has been an interesting year. 6 months ago, I was a philosophy professor on leave, preparing to return to my department, and I was preparing for some conferences and preparing some new courses that I thought I might teach, but then life changed. And I must say I'm absolutely delighted to be in the role I'm in now. It's a real thrill and a real opportunity. The University of Rochester has been extraordinarily good to me. I've had an opportunity over many years now to teach wonderful students, to collaborate with wonderful colleagues, to work with the university staff, and participate in so much of the life of the university. It's given me so much, and when asked if I could give back in a certain way, if I could help out in this time, I was delighted to do so. I want to acknowledge Joel Seligman, who was a wonderful president to the university, did an enormous amount to strengthen the university during his 12 and a half years as president, and then was as gracious and helpful to me during the transition as anybody could possibly have been. And I'm enormously grateful to him for his role in that. I think, to Emerson, to your questions about sort of reflections on the year or the past months, there's just a couple of things that I'll highlight for now. And one is I've been enormously heartened and pleased by the outpouring of support I've received from people throughout the university. I think the university's response to the issues we faced last fall, to the Mary Jo White report and its recommendations, showed a university full of people who are committed to making us better, to collaborating and working on how we can strengthen our culture and build on what's already a wonderful place with caring people and figure out how to make things even better. So I see this as an extraordinary opportunity to build on a good base and turn us into just a world class for how we treat our people. So that's one of the primary goals, and that kind of university commitment is one of the things that's been especially rewarding to me during these months. It's been a time to learn an enormous amount. I've learned about parts of the university I knew less about before. As I've been here a long time, I've known a lot of people, but I knew less about the medical center. I knew a bit less about life at the Eastman School of Music, and I've gotten to know much more. And as I learn more, I get more and more impressed and more and more excited about all the different things happening at the university and what our great strengths are. So I think those are a couple of things that have really hit me in these first months.
Well, President Feldman, you referenced culture and respect, and I think there's a lot of work that's underway at the university under your leadership. And of course, at the university, this is the core of who we are and what we do in terms of day in and day out, respect and leadership, and making sure that we have a culture that produces fine academic leaders for the future. And it'd be interesting, perhaps, maybe if you could share a little bit more insight to the audience of some of the work that's taken place
Sure.
under your leadership.
Happy to. We're framing what we're doing under the theme of strengthening our culture of respect. But I think the starting point for this is that the Mary Jo White report identified a number of issues related to sexual misconduct and how we respond to them. But as we thought about that, it became very clear to me that our goal was much broader than that, much more inclusive set of issues we wanted to address. And I can state pretty simply what the primary goal is. And it's this. It's that we want to have a community that's welcoming to everybody who arrives here, all our faculty, students, and staff, and that we have a culture in which everyone has the opportunity to thrive. So it's what's the culture like? How is it inclusive of all, and how does it make everyone succeed? Toward that end, one of the things that we've done, and this was approved by the Board of Trustees just last month, is we've identified a clear statement of the university's vision and values. And there are 7 words that capture, 7 principles that capture those values. And it just so happened that when you arrange those words in the right order and look at their first letters, it spells out the word meliora. It was fortunate that somebody who's interested in Scrabble was looking at that, because we had it organized a different way, and it was noticed. But our goal is to make those values not simply a poster on a wall somewhere or a statement on a website, but rather embed them into the culture of the university in ways that everyone is aware of them. Everyone understands that these are values that the university is genuinely committed to. So, for example, and this is just one example, sitting actually right here to my left is Joan Saab, who's new Vice Provost, Associate Provost, engaged in one of her activities will be working with new faculty as they enter the university. And she's committed to using the vision and value statements as part of the orientation of all new faculty, so that they understand that everyone who joins the university as a faculty member understands that these are parts of our commitments. And my goal, our hope is that by doing this, those kinds of values, that kind of understanding of support for individuals will be just embedded in the culture of the university, so that in the departments, people will understand this is how we behave. If somebody is behaving in ways that don't fit, aren't appropriate, it won't require some review board to intervene and change that. The person down the hall will say, that's not how we do things here at the U of R, that it'll be part of the culture, that it will be just part of who we are. We will build on top of that, and we're revising policies and programs and have systems for people to raise issues when they arise, but the real goal is to catch them before they arise, to create a kind of welcoming culture that doesn't allow for that.
And President Thurman, with that work that's taken place, can you comment on how the students and the faculty are engaged in helping to inform that body of work? Is that?
Students, faculty, staff are deeply engaged. I've established a new university-wide diversity and equity council that brings together students and faculty and staff from all around the university to discuss these issues. Their goal is to share ideas, share best practices, collaborate where possible, understand what some of the key priorities are, and bring them back to their various parts of the university. It's important to us that we not overly commit to university-wide specific programs, but rather have things that work in different parts of the university in different ways. What's needed in the Med Center might be different from what's needed among the undergrads, and we want to preserve that. There's a faculty committee that recently produced a report on women and gender equity in the academy, and we've been talking with them about their findings. There's a student committee that presented a report late this spring with a number of recommendations about policy changes that we're working with them. So there's widespread university-wide engagement, many people.
That's terrific. And of course, we have the medical center, and much of this work is going on there as well.
Absolutely. Linda Chaudron is the lead person in the medical center, organizing many of their activities, and we're working with her, coordinating with her in an effort to make sure that everything that we do covers the entire university.
Terrific, terrific. Well, I think as Trustee Whitmer said, you have deep roots here at the university. You've spent 4 decades or more, 43 years. So you know the faculty, you know our students extremely well, our administration. You know probably every nook and cranny here at the university. And it would be interesting to hear how your 40-plus years of experience has informed your leadership today as the president of the university.
I think there's 2 things that I'll mention there. One is, I think I do have known lots of people around the university, and in various projects and things I was engaged in over the years, I got to know a great many of them. And I think that did ease this transition, because there were just so many connections I could draw on, and so many people I could call or contact and just ask for advice or ask for help or ask for them to connect in some way on the things we're working on. And I think the other thing is in my various roles, I think I've developed a way to work with people that I think is especially helpful in the current framework, in the current situation. My work in philosophy and my own way of approaching things is very much collaborative. It's very much about sharing ideas and just trying to work through what the best idea is, regardless of who in the end is right. If I start out with one view and somebody has a better idea, that's fine. It doesn't matter who's right. It matters what's the best approach. And I think that's a way of thinking about things that I've developed partly in my academic work and partly in the various kinds of roles I've had that I think I've brought to this. And I think under the current circumstances, that's been a style that's been helpful.
Terrific. Well, the university has had a long academic history, 150 plus years old. And of course, like many premier institutions around the world, when you're sailing, sometimes you hit some choppy waters. And of course, we've hit some choppy waters as well. And perhaps you could share with the audience, as you look forward in terms of the academic future for the university, programs and where we're taking the whole enterprise, your thoughts about, are there more headwinds ahead, or do you think it's going to be smooth sailing?
Perfectly smooth sailing. An organization of this size, there's obviously going to be things that happen, and there will be problems. But the university is in wonderful shape, and it's important that people understand that. I'll cite just a few items to illustrate that. I think maybe you mentioned earlier, but we had in the college undergraduate level more than 20,000 applicants for candidates to apply for the admission to the college. The largest number ever, up over 12% from last year, highest quality ever from 100 countries around the world, and it looks like we're enrolling the best class we've ever had by any measure you might use. Advancement measures are wonderful, very successful. Faculty recruiting has gone extremely well this year. We've brought in lots of wonderful faculty in numerous disciplines, especially, I might add, in neuroscience, one of the departments that's been connected to some of the issues we face. They've been able to attract wonderful new faculty. So lots of successes. Number of ideas that we could think, that we're thinking about for the future. We recently we're in the early phases of a new campaign for the Eastman School. Eastman is approaching its 100th year, its centennial, and we're launching a campaign. A trustee and alumna, Joan Beal, has agreed to chair the committee to organize this effort. And Eastman is a gem. Eastman is, if not the best, one of the greatest music schools in the world. We want to make sure it can retain its status. And so it needs resources to do that, but at the same time, there's new effort on collaboration between the Eastman School and the River Campus and thinking about music programs that might benefit all. And so this campaign for Eastman is one of our key priority. A second key priority is in the medical center, where their growth has been extraordinary, and we're looking at additional resources, additional space in orthopedics, for the emergency room that just is not able to deal effectively with it's exceeding its capacity, and we need to grow that. So we're looking at projects along those lines to strengthen there. We're looking at putting a new theater on the River Campus to strengthen those programs. We have Tom and Linda Sloan have been very generous in supporting that program, and we're looking in the early phases of designing for that project. And then the other thing I'd like to mention, and perhaps we can talk more about, one of the things that I'm particularly enthusiastic about and want to ensure a trajectory we've been on under Joel's leadership that I want to make sure is continued, is that of the university's connection to the Rochester community. When I arrived here 43 years ago, the River Campus was like an island. The river on one side, the cemetery on the other, and it was difficult to get off campus. And undergraduate students, by and large, didn't get off campus, and it didn't matter that they were in Rochester. Their education was a function of what happened in their classrooms on that campus, and it could have happened anywhere. And that's changed over the years. And there were other connections to the Rochester community before, but not with the kind of depth that it has now. And Dennis O'Brien was the president when we built the bridge over the river, and that was a first step forward. But it wasn't until Joel's leadership that the connection to the university, to the community, really got the kind of emphasis that it has now. And that growth is something that's enormously important to our strength, the university's strength and the community's strength. Those are linked together, and I'm committed to continuing that kind of growth. The East High Initiative is a wonderful example of the way the university can connect, but there's so many other ways, programs in the medical center, programs in the Eastman School of Music, their community music school, on the River Campus, the Upward Bound programs through our Kern Center. I mean, just one thing after another where the university and the community are closely connected. And perhaps, if you like, we can get into some of the economic measures of our impact. But I'm pulled together, just had the first meeting today of a committee to try to pull together and identify all the university's connections to the university and find ways for us to better collaborate, better understand, and better talk about all of that in a more coherent and organized way. So that's one of the other things that I think will continue on in the near future.
That's terrific. Well, we're going to give the audience a chance to also ask some questions, but I do want to come back to the community. I spent my career at Xerox. I had almost 4 decades as an executive at the company as well, and I distinctly recall when Xerox and Kodak and Bausch and Lomb and other major institutions really cared for this community in a very, very significant way. And of course, those institutions have evolved, and they are what they are today. And it seems like the university has now in the position to become the beacon for the community in many, many ways. Of course, one of the premier academic centers for the community, the medical center, quality of care. You can't find better care anywhere in the country than our medical center. We are such a large enterprise in terms of employment here at the university as well. I think well over 30,000, perhaps 35,000 or so employees. So you've touched on a lot of that, but can you say just a little more as we kind of get ready for the audience to ask some questions here?
Sure. So the university does now employ over 30,000 people. The medical center is not just Rochester, but it's really become a regional medical hub, so affecting a much broader community. But the impact of the university goes well beyond our own employees. If you look to the economic impact of the university and the people who are employed in Rochester as a result of the university's activities, the estimate is that approaches 60,000 people, that there's another 30,000 whose careers here are a function of the university's activities. The university, the economic value of the salaries that the employees earn at the university and spend in the community measures in the billions. Our students, it's estimated that our students spend $100 million in the Rochester community every year. That's beyond what they spend on campus for their room and board and their tuition, but when they go out to eat or when they go out to buy things in the community. So there's just measure after measure of the economic impact of the university on the community that goes well beyond the kind of direct engagement such as East High and the other things we've already talked about. So yeah, so the university, and I should also mention the kind of entrepreneurial activities where the university and university employees are engaged in building startups and enriching the community. So I think so much of what used to happen from the so-called Big Three it has now transferred into these other kinds of settings, much of it driven by members of the university community. So yeah, we're absolutely a kind of a vital linchpin for the Rochester community, and proud to be so.
Terrific, great. Well, I know our audience is anxious to ask a few questions, so I think we have a little time here, and we have some mics, so why don't we hear from our audience here? So, yes, the first question right here, to my left.
Rich, could you give us an update on the Community Engaged Learning Program? And in particular, maybe share your thoughts on how that program increases the value of a student's education.
Sure. I'd love to. That's one of my favorite programs. So this is a program that in some ways goes back to my Dean of the College days. But one of the questions I thought about and discussed with colleagues during those years was to ask the question with respect to undergraduates, why are we here? And now I'm a philosopher, and there's that interpretation of the question, but that wasn't the one I was asking. I was then the dean, and I was asking a different question. What's the value of assembling all the students here? What's gained by having students in one location when they could be watching online courses? And what was better here? And there were three answers: by engaging in directed research and with faculty, by interacting with one another, and the ability they had to interact with the community and to strengthen their education because of the direct contact with the community that they are in. And Rochester is such a wonderful community, a resource for them. Its artistic history, its entrepreneurial history, its religious history, and then the social problems that the community has. All of those provided an opportunity for students to learn something by engaging with that community. So out of that thinking, a faculty committee worked on this and developed a program that you were a generous supporter of. And it's a program in which students can take a sequence of courses and then do a research project. The courses are all ones in which a faculty member teaches a course that's partly in the classroom, but then there's activities where they're outside the classroom, and they have some engagement with the whatever it is they're studying, but as it occurs in the real world. So they might have some course that has something to do with criminal justice, but then they'll make contact with the district attorney or defense attorneys or other members of the criminal justice system. And so that program was launched a couple of years ago. I think we believed in the first year there'd probably be something like 10 or so students who'd enroll. There were over 20 in the first year. I don't have the most recent numbers, but this past spring, the first half dozen who completed the program graduated. And it was a real thrill to meet with those students and hear about their projects. So I don't know what just happened. So that's a fabulous program, and it's growing. Lots of faculty interested, and we're thrilled with it.
Okay. All right. Other questions from the audience? Yes. Right here, fourth row.
I wonder if you could comment on what the university is doing to open its doors to lower income students who have not had the same enrichment than maybe your present students have been able to have.
So in all parts of the university, every school, we provide an enormous amount of scholarship support to students, and that support comes in different amounts for different based on need and for the students in the college where I have the greatest knowledge. We have a number of programs. Many of them from the generous support of donors, some of whom are in the room, so that we're able to bring in dozens and dozens of students who without that support simply would not be able to attend the university. Some come with full support, so all their tuition, all their fees are paid. Others with some partial support, and their families are able to contribute something. But in every school, there are generous scholarship programs. One of the things in talking with Tom Farrell about our advancement activities, it continues raising funds, resources, so that we can strengthen how much we're able to provide for scholarships is always one of our top priorities. We want, to the extent we possibly can, to be a campus where financial resources just does not determine whether somebody is able to attend. And we strive to do that. We're extremely generous in the amount of aid we give. We give more aid than many of our the other comparable schools, and we're proud of it. So there's opportunities for many students, and we continue to build those opportunities.
Yes.
There was much publicity when the university connected with East High School
Yes.
several years ago. And I'm wondering, the lack of publicity on what the progress has been is glaring. And I'm wondering just exactly how that program has been able to help East High, and also whether that would be expanded to include some of the elementary schools that are currently having such difficulty.
There has been some discussion of that. I'm looking for Sean Nelms, who I saw earlier. So Sean is at the lead in the East High initiative, and I'll say what I think I remember him saying. I think I can get these facts right. So the progress over the 3 years that the university has been involved in East High is nothing short of extraordinary. When our team took over there, I believe the graduation rate was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20% or something like that. And Rafaela is there next to him. Sorry, Rafaela. And it's expected with the current class it will be in the 60s. Is that too high? Too high? 67? 57. Okay, 57%. So a near tripling of the graduation rate, The attendance rates are up enormously. The numbers of disciplinary actions reduced enormously. I mean, by every measure, the progress at East High is just remarkable and something we're extraordinarily proud of. There's a new Center for Urban Educational Success that's being built and developed. There'll be more about that in the very near future, but one of the goals of that is to make use of what's learned through the East High Initiative and publish on that, do academic research connected to that, so that what's learned there can be spread to other schools, and we can build on the success at East and do what universities do, which is sort of build the academic understanding of what's working there and provide additional resources, information elsewhere. And I know there are discussions about partnering with elementary schools as sort of feeder schools for East High so that we can develop that further. So I think this has been something we should be extraordinarily proud of. It's been very successful. It continues to grow. I think Sean would be the first to say there's work still to be done. It's not simple, and they have to keep pushing ahead, but they are under his able leadership. So I think that's a great success story, and if you haven't heard enough about it, then we need to say more because it's wonderful. Yeah.
That's a question.
I'm very, excuse me, I'm very glad that the university is so generous with scholarships for low-income students. But my question is, what about after they enter? What is the university doing to help the ones who need help at that point? And also to better integrate the scholarship students with the rest of the university so that all parties can learn from that experience?
Great, that's a great question, and it's one of the things that was especially important to me when I was dean. And Jeff Runner, who's my successor as dean and is sitting here, I know shares this as a important value. One of the things that's extremely important in dealing with lower income students, and here we're thinking mainly about, I'm talking mainly about college students, but some of these considerations apply elsewhere. One of the things is that in some cases they lack what's often described as social capital. They don't quite know as well from their family's experiences how to navigate through college and how to succeed when they're there. And tuition awards are not all they need in order to succeed. And without going into great detail, we've built programs that provide them both advising resources, but also other kinds of support so that kind of level the playing field and give them a comparable college experience so that, for example, resources so that they're able to go on a study abroad program like another student might be able to, or resources so that if they need a summer course because they got off track in their scheduling and they need something to get on pace, they have the resources to take a summer course. Or they can take an unpaid internship in order to gain a certain kind of experience. So one of the things we've tried to do to strengthen, to provide additional support for students of the sort you asked about is make sure that we go beyond just giving them tuition dollars, but giving them the kinds of resources they need to thrive in school. And the data suggests great success with that. There's one donor I know who gave support for a program like that. And it was about 6 or 7 students per year that were supported through her generosity in this enriched way. And at the end of the first period, every one of those students was on track to graduate. So they were succeeding at a rate greater than the average student. So a really great success.
I'd like you to speak about security on campus. Because of recent headlines, this is of great concern.
We have the public safety office on campus has been strengthened greatly over the in recent years. From I believe it's 3 years ago. I'm not certain I'm right about the timing, but the public safety officers, a number of them were authorized to carry arms on campus, so that I should not say on campus, in the medical center, where some of the risks are greatest, and they're now doing that. They're trained so that they can be responsive to events on campus. Our public safety office has a wonderful partnership with the Rochester Police Department so that they can coordinate their activities. So we've strengthened their professional training, and I think we're in a good place on that. There's a trustee committee that regularly meets that's a public safety oversight committee that meets, I don't know exactly what the schedule is, I think a couple of times a semester, to review the data, review the training programs they have, review where things stand, and see if there's anything more we need to do to provide security on campus. But obviously that has to be one of our highest priorities, and we do focus on it.
Yes.
Yes, the hospital system has expanded tremendously in the past few years, and I'd like to know about the university's objectives in expanding that. Are the hospitals profitable, and what does it mean to the university's finances?
So the hospitals, the medical center, the hospitals that have been acquired as the system has expanded are not in their own right significant financial contributors. That is, they're not major resources of profit. But I think my understanding of the system is that it's really imperative for a successful system to be a regional system and be able to provide all levels of care throughout the system, so that it might be that patients from some of the more distant hospitals will come to or come to Rochester for some of the more higher levels of care that are needed, so that having this larger system enables it to be a more effective system. And I think that's sort of the way hospital systems are developing in the current times, that they're much less sort of more isolated, independent, very localized systems, but much more regional systems. And that's what the university's medical center is attempting to do. So I think it makes it a better system. I think it does add resources to the overall system, but I think to look at it as simply a financial calculation would not be exactly the right way to think about it.
So I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. We have a short video we want to show you as well. So is there someone there?
Can I ask a question? This is from one of our guests in the overflow room, sitting in the ballroom, watching. I'm going to read the question exactly as it's written, which is, what advice or words of wisdom, President Feldman, will you share with our new university president when she begins?
Well, I like the way that was phrased. I think I think I would share the following few thoughts. Number one is she's joining an extraordinarily strong and dynamic university with wonderful faculty, students, a strong leadership, that it's just a great team, it's a great place to work, that the foundation that you'll be building on is just, it's a great job. It's a great opportunity to work with a university that's growing and developing in the way we are. And I think the other kind of thing that I'd want to talk about is the value of listening. There's so many people who are so smart and there's such deep roots at the university and in the community that you can learn from, And the way to succeed in a role like this, I mean, because the range of things you have to think about is enormous, and you can't know everything. You have to learn to rely on other people, and you have them here. And so I think my advice would be learn to listen, to take information, to digest it, and try to act on it. That there's just such a wealth of resources here that it's a great place to do that.
Great. So one more.
You mentioned the establishment of a number of committees during your presentation, and I have this question. I'm always concerned when I hear people talk about committees because my basic philosophy is that a camel is a horse that was put together by a committee. However, will the committees have the abilities to make meaningful change, i.e., that will they have measurable benchmarks and the ability to change their direction if it appears it's necessary?
The one-word answer is yes. I should say a little bit more. We're trying to be very careful in when we establish committees that they have a clearly defined goal and to the extent we can, a timetable to act so that their activities are clearly understood, and what they, in most cases, what the committees are charged to do is come back with a set of recommendations about what we might want to do with respect to a specific topic. So to take one example, universities and other kinds of organizations typically have for their staff, their employees, in the university case, the faculty and students and staff, various kinds of training about, in our case, we're thinking about implicit bias kinds of training or sexual harassment training. And so we've assembled a committee that's to look at that and come up with a set of recommendations for the sort of training we ought to provide to the different parts of the university. What might be most appropriate for staff in the medical center might be rather different from what's most appropriate for faculty in the Eastman School of Music. And so we're thinking about how to work through that, but they're charged with giving recommendations for what that training will be. They're hard at work at that. They've made a lot of progress already. We're committed to having training programs next fall. Their recommendations will come back to this university-wide committee that I mentioned, and decisions about implementation will be made. So I think the short answer is yes. I mean, I understand the risks of committees, and I understand the risks of committees writing reports that get put on a shelf and are never heard from again. But in this case, these committees are all making recommendations on topics on which we're committed to making change, and their recommendations will be at the heart of the final decisions made. So I'm confident that they will be effective and meaningful committees.
Okay, well, President Feldman, I know that you're going to be around for the reception and cocktails, so there'll be time for other up-close engagements with the president. We have the CEO of the Medical Center that's here. I think most of the deans are here. The chair of the board of the Medical Center is here as well. So lots of opportunity to have further engagement and dialogue today. But I want to thank you for just a wonderful engagement today. I think this has been terrific, and let's give our president a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to conclude, we have a short video. We are so proud of some of the great research that's taken place. It's leading edge globally. So John Fox, one of the faculty members, is leading the neuroscience area. And we have a short video, so we want to make sure you get a chance to see that. So.
I'm John Fox. I came to the University of Rochester 2 years ago from New York City to direct the Del Monte Neuroscience Institute because the University of Rochester is a national powerhouse in the neurosciences. Major mental illness and neurological disorders have a massive impact on society and the economy. It takes people out of the workforce. It costs a lot of money to treat folks. Take Alzheimer's disease. Today, there are 10 million individuals in the US suffering from a dementia. By 2050, that number will be in the 35 million range. And the cost to the American economy will be $1.1 trillion. So we need to understand the brain and we need to understand these neurological disorders. We founded the Del Monte Institute at the University of Rochester Medical Center to break out of the traditional models. You can bring engineers together with the chemists, together with the biologists and the neuroscientists to attack a problem in a concerted way. When we're talking about autism spectrum disorder, a really key component, one of the things we know for sure is that early intervention makes a huge difference. And the earlier that intervention occurs, the better the situation is going to be. The average age of first diagnosis for a child on the autism spectrum in the United States today is almost 5 years of age. So from my perspective, that's a tragedy. We've missed this huge window, this huge opportunity to make a profound difference in that child's life. Changing lives is what we're about. And what we do at the University of Rochester and at the Del Monte Institute is we map the brain trajectory of these children using electrophysiology and imaging by identifying them early while their brain is still really plastic, and by bringing resources to bear to really provide intensive early intervention, we can make a difference right at the right time. The point here is that when a child is born into a family with one of these devastating neurodevelopmental diseases, it has a massive impact. The child suffers, the parents suffer, the siblings suffer. Parents stay home from work, parents get out of the workforce. We're miles and miles away from real good answers for most of the major mental illnesses that afflict people. Over the last 18 months, we've hired 10 new neuroscientists, and our intention is over the next 12 months to hire another 6. And we've been bringing in experts from all over the world to add to the already extraordinary talent pool that we have at the University of Rochester. You really need to throw the book at these diseases, and we need to do it big time. We really need to go for it. And we need teams bringing concerted action on these really wicked problems, the wicked problems of science, these neurological diseases, because the stakes are really high here. Thank you, University of Rochester.